So we talked about molarity, which is how many moles are in volume. We talked about mass percent, which is how much, what percent of the whole solution is a substance. Now we're going to talk about parts per million, or it can also be parts per thousand or parts per billion. Basically, for some things, a percentage doesn't seem appropriate, or molarity doesn't seem appropriate because the concentrations are so tiny. It'd be a very, very tiny number. So what we use is parts per million. Now we should remind ourselves that when we say parts in chemistry, we really mean grams, because we don't count individual atoms, we count by mass. And so even though it's labeled ppm, it really means grams per million, or grams per thousand, or grams per billion. So what is this? How do we measure these things? The idea is basically, if you had 1 million grams solution, which would be approximately like 1,000 liters of water. If you had 1,000 liters of waters, how much of the stuff is inside there in grams? So if you had 5 grams of a solute inside of 1 million grams of solution, that'd be 5 parts per million. If you ever had to solve a problem, you have to use the proportion. For example, what if you have 0.02 grams of lead and you find that in 10,000 grams of water? So we found in some concentration we had 10,000 grams of solution, and inside it we had 0.02 grams of lead. Well, what is the concentration in parts per million? When you set up your proportion, on the bottom over here, you just put down what you want to have it in. Here we have a million because we want it in parts per million. If I wanted it in billion, I'd put an extra 3 zeros over here. If I wanted it in 1,000, I'd put just over 1,000. So we're going to set a proportion. If there's 0.02 grams and 10,000 grams, how many grams of lead would be inside of 1 million grams? And so you just set up the proportion, cross multiply, solve for x, and you get 2 parts per million. So we do this for really, really tiny concentrations, where we want to find out how much would be in 1 million grams or 1 billion grams of the solution.